Imagine you've never seen your own face. Not in a photograph, not in a mirror, not in the reflection of a phone screen. For almost all of human history, this was normal. You knew what your family looked like. You knew what your friends looked like. You knew the faces of every person in your tribe. But your own face remained a mystery. You could touch it, you could feel it, you could imagine it, but you could never truly see it. Then one day, you lean over a perfectly still pool of water. And there it is. A human face staring back at you. It moves when you move. It watches when you watch. It copies every gesture with impossible precision. To us, this seems completely ordinary. To an ancient human, it may have been one of the strangest experiences imaginable. Today, mirrors are everywhere. Most of us look into a mirror several times every day without giving it a second thought. But for most of human existence, mirrors simply didn't exist. The closest thing was still water, a pond, a river, a lake on a calm morning. Even then, reflections were unreliable. A gust of wind could shatter the image. A ripple could stretch a face into something unrecognizable. Most people likely saw only brief and distorted glimpses of themselves throughout their entire lives. This creates a fascinating possibility. For thousands of generations, humans knew the faces of everyone around them better than they knew their own. Think about that. Right now, your own face is probably the most familiar face in your life. You've seen it thousands of times. Ancient humans lived in the opposite reality. Their face existed almost as an idea rather than a visual fact. Other people knew exactly what they looked like. They didn't. The earliest known mirrors were made from polished obsidian, a naturally occurring volcanic glass. Archaeologists have discovered examples that are more than 8,000 years old. Creating one required enormous effort. The surface had to be polished until it became reflective enough to show an image. These objects were rare, valuable, sometimes sacred. Most people would never own one. And perhaps that's not surprising because mirrors are far stranger than they appear. The real mystery of mirrors isn't historical. It's psychological, because seeing yourself is one of the strangest things any living creature can do. Most animals fail what's known as the mirror test. Place a mark on an animal where it can't normally see it. Then place the animal in front of a mirror. Most species never realize the reflection belongs to them. They see another animal. Not themselves. Humans are different. Around 18 months after birth, something remarkable begins to happen. A child looks into a mirror and suddenly understands something profound. That is me. Psychologists consider this one of the most important milestones in human development, because the moment you recognize yourself, a new kind of awareness becomes possible. You stop being a creature that merely experiences the world. You become a creature that can think about itself. And that changes everything. Suddenly there is a distinction between you and everything else. There is a self, a person, an individual moving through the world. That realization may seem small, but it creates consequences that echo through an entire lifetime. Because once you understand that you exist, new questions appear. Who am I? How do other people see me? Why am I here? What happens to me when I die? A mirror doesn't just show a face. It introduces a mind to itself. And that encounter can be deeply unsettling. Throughout history, reflective surfaces were often surrounded by myths, rituals, and superstitions. In parts of ancient Greece, mirrors were connected to prophecy and hidden knowledge. In China, certain mirrors were believed to reveal spirits. Throughout Europe, people developed traditions involving mirrors and death. In some regions, mirrors were covered after someone died because it was believed that the soul might become trapped within the reflection. To modern eyes, these beliefs may sound irrational, but imagine encountering a perfect reflection without understanding optics. The figure follows your every movement. It never speaks. It never looks away. It appears trapped inside a flat surface. If you had no knowledge of light, how would you explain it? Human beings have always used stories to explain mysteries. Before science explained lightning, people imagined gods. Before astronomy explained eclipses, people imagined monsters devouring the sun. Before optics explained reflections, many imagined souls, spirits, and hidden worlds. Mirrors became supernatural because they genuinely seemed supernatural. What's even more interesting is that modern humans are not entirely immune to these feelings. In 2010, psychologist Giovanni Caputo conducted a strange experiment. Participants sat alone in a dimly lit room and stared at their own reflection for several minutes without looking away. The results were unsettling. Many participants reported that their faces began to change. Some saw strangers, others saw distorted or monstrous versions of themselves. A few claimed they saw deceased relatives. Some even felt as though another presence was staring back from inside the mirror. Scientists call this phenomenon the strange face illusion. The explanation lies in the way the brain processes visual information. When the brain is forced to stare at an almost unchanging face for an extended period, it begins making mistakes. Features appear to shift. Faces appear unfamiliar. Reality becomes unstable. But here's the fascinating part. Knowing the explanation doesn't make the experience less disturbing, because for a brief moment, the person in the mirror stops feeling like you. And that reveals something important. Human identity is more fragile than we like to believe. Every day, your brain maintains an internal model of who you are. Your memories, your personality, your experiences, and your physical appearance are woven together into a single story. The story of you. But that story exists entirely inside your mind, and mirrors occasionally remind us of that fact. The face staring back feels familiar, not because it actually is familiar, but because your brain continuously tells you it belongs to you. Interrupt that process for even a moment, and the certainty begins to crack. Perhaps this is why mirrors have fascinated humans for thousands of years, not because they reveal our appearance, but because they force us to confront our identity. A wolf never questions who it is. A deer never lies awake wondering about its purpose. Most animals live entirely within the present moment. Humans are different. We can examine our own thoughts. We can imagine ourselves from another person's perspective. We can think about our past and worry about our future. We can even become aware of our own awareness. And that may be one of the strangest abilities that evolution has ever produced. A mirror turns that ability back on itself. Every time you look into one, something extraordinary happens. A conscious mind observes the body carrying it through the world. A collection of atoms becomes aware enough to recognize itself. The universe, in a small and temporary way, looks back at itself. Maybe that's the real reason mirrors frightened our ancestors. Not because they believed monsters lived inside them, not because they feared trapped souls, but because mirrors revealed something far stranger: the self. For the first time, a human could stand face to face with the one person they would never be able to escape. The person who would witness every triumph, every mistake, every fear, every dream, the person staring back from the reflection. Thousands of years later, we understand the science of mirrors. We understand light, optics, and perception. Yet many people still feel uneasy staring into a mirror in a dark room. Many still look away after a few seconds. Some still feel the strange sensation that another presence is watching them. Maybe that's because mirrors were never really about reflections. Maybe they were always about consciousness. A mirror doesn't simply show you what you look like. It reminds you that you exist. And for a species capable of questioning its own existence, that may be the strangest discovery of all.